Continuing with the use of the New York State GIS Clearinghouse, right under the data menu, there's another data set which I asked for somebody to download called Civil Boundaries. Civil boundaries are the boundaries of towns and villages and counties and other municipalities. Those are called civil boundaries. So we can just click right on that and find right off the bat that it says here it's unlocked. We have a shapefile of New York State civil boundaries. So far so good. Let's go after that and download it, and it's ready. So we'll click on this, and we have to go through the same process again. In this case, we discover that there's a little more thinking to be done. We have here a very substantial number of shapefiles, 5, 6, 7 shapefiles here. So I'm just going to go right ahead and select all of them and slap them into this, into my stuff area, and say paste. I didn't copy, so before I can copy, before I can paste, I need to copy. So now there's a whole bunch more files available, and what I'd like to do now is show you a little something. You can go to File and say New and start a new map and say don't save the old one, without the trouble of having to restart the software, which takes a bit of time. So now I have a new space to work in, and I can go ahead and once again ask for it to add data. And because I haven't turned my computer off, it still remembers things I've connected to, folders I've connected to, and there's parcels, and I already loaded that one. So I'm going to select all of these, and don't need to load that one again, and say add. And it's given me 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 different shapefiles. And the job that is necessary here in curating of this is to decide which of these are useful, and the ones that are useful to give back to the group. So we have here the state of New York with its shoreline. That's not useful for our project. And there's also another one that shows the actual boundary of New York, which extends into the middle of Lake Ontario, etc. Neither one of those is useful. Our watershed is entirely located in the state of New York, so no new information is provided by state or state shoreline. We can have all the counties of New York and also the counties with their true boundaries extending into Lake Ontario. Our watershed is completely in Monroe County, so we don't need that either. So we'll remove those. There are civil divisions that are Indian nations, and I'm almost positive that's the Tonawanda. That's kind of far away. In fact, I'm absolutely positive that there aren't any native lands in Monroe County, so there's none in our watershed. So we don't have. So for our watershed study, we don't need the boundaries of Indian territories. So all we have left is cities and towns, and this is every township in New York. And we also have villages, which are, so we have city boundaries, towns, and villages. And that would be Hilton right there, that would be Spencerport, Parma, Greece, etc. So all these are interesting. And at a future date, not too far in the future, we'll be extracting the features that are relevant to our watershed, which is right about here. But for now, we've curated and discovered that we need villages, and cities and towns are the only two of these that seem to be of use. So I'll just clear that, go to the folder, and That's my shape file. So I'll just go to the folder, and that's one I don't need. And again, just a little, you have to really think hard about the process here of keeping track of stuff. I'm going to make a new folder, and it's not difficult. It just requires attention, and we'll call these civil divisions. And the files that are useful as civil divisions are the cities and towns. We'll slap those into civil divisions. And I can actually make move them rather than copy them. And we were also interested in villages. It's funny because villages and cities usually go together, but what we're going to do is cut and paste. And again, along the lines of being tidy and organized and cleaning things up, all the rest of this stuff is not useful anymore. So, and I seem to have somehow been left with a stray lock file, which we'll be able to clean up later. So now there's a folder called Civil Divisions, which contains cities, towns, and villages, and we can also send that to the dataset folder on the Google Drive. Parcels looks like it's done. So now I can go and say upload a folder, and see if I can remember how to find it. It takes a little bit of thinking. So we go to the desktop, and there should be something called Stuff. It's my folder on the desktop that I put things, and Civil Divisions, and say OK. And this one will probably load quickly, less than a minute. And now Civil Divisions and Parcels will both as well be on the Google Drive. So Civil Divisions are done. I think I'm going to do stormwater outfalls to show one other twist in the use of the New York State GIS Clearinghouse. So I'm going to go and do stormwater outfalls. Those are places where a municipal stormwater system empties into a water body, for instance, Northrop Creek. So in order to find that, the hint I gave, since we don't see stormwater outfalls or discharge points, if you see a pipe coming out of a stream bank dumping water, it's most likely a stormwater outflow. So I don't see that there, but there was a hint that I gave in the write-up. It says search in the data catalog by name for stormwater. So that means in this case, we're going to go to something called data catalog and access the entire search engine capabilities, including searching for all the organizations that it might belong to, a theme that a data set might belong to, or by its name. So we'll select by name, and it looks like it takes a while to realize that you don't see anything that says stormwater, but then you also realize that these are all A's. Then you notice that we can go to an S, and should be a stormwater. Still working on my alphabet. So there would be stormwater outfalls, and this has a locked lock on it. So we have to. So what that means is that it requires a sign-in. It requires a password. So when I try to grab it, it requires me to type in my password for this particular data site. This is considered slightly more sensitive data, and therefore only members of the New York State GIS Cooperative are able to obtain this. So now I can obtain my member information, and it looks to me like I'm going to pause the video because I'm going to verify my user information. All data is correct. That was quick. And it's going to force me to go back and search by the data set again, even though I just did. So now that I'm logged in, I go to the S, I go down about that far and ask for stormwater outfalls. And since I'm logged in, I'm now able to get the outfalls, the stormwater outfalls right there. And now I can follow the same process. And this is actually a pretty small data set. And I can go right ahead, save all of this information, and can copy it, return to my stuff folder, and make a new folder called outfalls. So I can create a folder called outfalls, and I'll paste it in there. So I thought ahead of time. I thought now that I have my organization process set up, I can skip a step there and do that. And now I can, and it remembers again to look in stuff on my desktop. I can go ahead and locate all of the stormwater outfalls that are in New York State, and those we will shortly or eventually trim down. And I guess this is the Monroe County area, that's the Buffalo area, Syracuse, Utica. These are stormwater outfalls are generally mapped, located, and studied only in metropolitan areas, or what are called urban areas. So those are the urban areas where stormwater outfalls are, and we can zoom in and see that there's quite a few. And there's Genesee River, I think, etc. So that's the extent of that data set. It did require a password, and I have to be I have the responsibility, therefore, to only download and use this data if there's a legitimate need, and to use it correctly. And studying Northrop Creek is a legitimate need. So after I extract the points that go into Northrop Creek, or they're around here somewhere, I guess. After I extract those points, then I'll be able to share them on Google Drive.